Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome everyone. Very good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all our attendees today and my fellow panelists. I'm Rohitashwa Aggarwal. I focus on the GBS Research and Advisory here at Everest Group. And this is the episode 3 of our Conversation with Leaders series. And we have a very seasoned panel today and a very interesting topic to cover. Uh, Early this year, we came across a very interesting problem statement from one of our clients, and they said that while they are one of the top 5 financial services firm in the US and one of the largest employers, they do all their assessments in their employee value proposition. They wanted to understand what do their employees feel about them, what is the perception of their brand out in the market, because like everybody else, they were also struggling to hire and retain talent. What started as a pilot for that client has since then become much larger and a much more meaningful and useful tool for the industry. And I'm very glad to share again that earlier this month we launched our inaugural top GBS Employers assessment, wherein we assessed 200 plus GBS organizations across India, Philippines, and Poland. And we identifying the top employers against in each of these markets. We did a webinar on this topic a couple of weeks back to share the results. What we are doing today is something we believe will benefit our uh, clients and the broader industry greatly. I have with me today a very seasoned panel, and they represent some of those top GBS employers identified in this research. And today we are going to be discussing and hearing directly from them about what makes them stand out, what is their secret sauce, how do they do it, and what can they share with rest of the industry. And thanks to them for willing to share their insights. And with that, let me introduce the panel to you, Shweta.
Hi, thanks, Rohit. It's such a pleasure to be here and, amidst very esteemed panelists, along with me, Tarun and Nitin. And I'm so excited, about, this opportunity to share, some of our learning, some of the areas where, we have worked very hard in the last few years. And I can't be more excited and humbled to really know that we are one of the top GBS employers and can't wait to share some of the things that we feel we did right. I have the privilege to lead the people function for SAP in India. We are across different LOBs, right from sales to services to a fairly large and young, dynamic, development organization. And I'm really excited to be here amidst all of you.
Hey, thanks, Shweta. And where are you dialing in from today?
I'm dialing from Bangalore.
Great. And I'm calling in from Punjab. I'm at my native place today. And I see we have people listening in from Miami and Chennai. So let's move over to Tarun.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rohit, and thanks, Shweta. Good to be here with all of you. Um, I'm looking forward to the discussion and the conversation along with Shweta, Nitin, and Rohit. My name is Tarun Sareen, and I'm the managing director of Sun Life Asia Service Centers, which includes our center in Philippines. And before Rohit asks, today I'm in Manila, and also includes a center in India. I'm very, very keen to have a conversation that is of meaning to all of us and to everyone who's spending time with us today. So looking forward to it.
Welcome, Tarun, and thanks for joining whilst on a trip. Nitin?
Yeah. So first of all, pleasure to share this space with Shweta and Tarun. I believe this is going to be very exciting discussion, a lot of learnings, a lot of sharing. So really thanks for that opportunity, Rohit from the Everest Group. In terms of my introduction, I'm Nitin Gupta, Senior Director. I'm part of the MDS organization in Mondelez, basically the GBS organization, we call it Mondelez Digital Services. I'm currently leading all the digital transformation globally for the procurement function. But yeah, I'm happy to share here, the insights from the entire MDS organization from Mondelez. Looking forward.
Glad. Welcome again, Nitin. And I see we have listeners from Geneva, we have from different parts of India. So good. Uh, let's get started. And once again, congratulations to all of you on this recognition. You have done some really solid work in making yourself top employers. And let's start unpacking it. But Shweta, let me start with you. Right, this is truly first of its kind of a research that has been done, and this is we did not take any inputs from you as an employer. We did not survey your current employees. We went out and analyzed what's out there in the public domain and did a perception based analysis. How do you look at this kind of research, and does it help? If so, how?
Yeah, so Rohit, we are, at the outset, like I said, we are, and I'm really speaking on behalf of 14,000 employees, in SAP in India. We are really humbled, to be recognized as a top GBS employer. I do feel it is a true testimony to what we have been, doing right as an organization, and especially in context, Rohit, with what the world has seen in the last 2 years. I truly believe that crisis brings out the true character. And in the last 2 years, which have been obviously very challenging for the world, we at SAP have really been making some incremental changes in understanding how the world is changing, how the needs of the employees are changing. We are launching new policies, making changes to existing processes. We are really redefining what culture means in the new world, in the new and the next world. And this entire thing has been experimental phase for us. Obviously, from our side, we did a bunch of listening from our employees. We go out and listen to our customers. And in times like this, getting an outside in employee perception and being ranked as a top GBS employer is really a great pat in the back, right? Because Everest study is based on, like you mentioned, on brand perception and benchmarking with other organizations. So even if it means that we are in a journey, there are certain aspects which we do believe that we are strong in, from an employee's perspective, from the world outside, how the prospective candidates and people outside are looking at it. They might be aware of a few things. There are a lot of things that they might not be even aware of, if you look at from an external perception. So it's really a great feeling. I do believe that a study like this tells you, in some way, an unfiltered perception and view of how the world looks at you. And we generally do a deep dive of studies like yours and map areas of improvement. We look into the existing practices, and this is a great opportunity for us to identify gaps. I do feel this multidimensional outside in perspective will help us even going forward to design our people practices and experiences, with the changing employee needs and the changes in the work models that we see all the time. So it's a great great recognition. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to be amidst and talking about all that we have done.
Thanks, Shweta. Tarun, same question. What are your reactions to this?
I think the first reaction is certainly, as Shweta mentioned, it's a privilege to be recognized by Everest Group. It inspires us to continue doing what we're doing very well and continue on the journey. We are a company that is very humble. And you'd see this in our top leadership. Humility is one of our key defining traits. So there's a lot for us to learn. The world changes. What was good yesterday, what was innovation yesterday becomes hygiene today. And what's innovation today will be hygiene tomorrow, right? Will be BAU tomorrow. So you have to absolutely keep on learning and be ahead of the curve. So it puts that responsibility on us that if Everest recognizes us now, we must continue to be doing the right thing for our people, and be ahead on the curve. I think the other thing that point number two that I would like to submit is the way we look at these studies is, and I do think Shweta alluded to this as well, is deeply, what are the areas that are the strengths as perceived from outside in, and what are the areas perceived from outside in that we can further continue to develop as well. So I think the learning piece of it is also very, it's a privilege to have that learning, so you can act upon it. I think the last piece that I'll mention, the third point I'll mention, is that I'm a big fan of values and purpose-oriented organization. Ours is a purpose-oriented organization, and I think um, if in my own personal view, I like to see more and more of our corporate world exhibit purpose more closely. So I think Everest Group and others and all of us have a joint responsibility to create the world together as well. So we focus on the world within our own companies and for our own clients, and that's absolutely necessary. But we also have to look at the world and the ecosystem from a wider lens, and recognition of what's happening well in this world, I think, inspires many of us to continue to do better. So I think there's a give back and to the industry, and a collective effort that I think you can spark through these studies. When you study top 200, people who did not make it to the top 10 this year should make it to the top 10 next year, so and so forth. So we'll keep and you do that by doing the right things, right? There's one of those studies that only if you do the right thing for your people, the perception follows.
Oh, definitely, and that's an important call out, Tarun, is that as it is not a one-time job. This is something that all of you and your organizations have been working very hard in an ongoing manner. So at Everest, we are also committed to repeating this year on year. Of course, we are also, while we are hearing positive feedback, we are also collecting suggestions on what will make it better. So definitely, and you are right. And we've seen that there are three kinds of reactions, right? One, oh, definitely, this merits a policy rethink based on the feedback. Second,
Yeah.
uh, perhaps there needs to be a communication strategy change because we don't believe this is an issue, but it seems like it is an issue. And third, there are things which are like noise. So even identification of areas where there is too much noise are important, and then to work on it. So great. And Tarun, I'll come back to you on a couple of things you said. And I also see some questions for you specifically already popping up in the chat. So I'll come back to them. But before that, Nitin, let me bring you in. Mondelez has a very unique GBS model as well, your integrated business services model. But as you look at your own employees and then your broader footprint in these locations, and you are also top employer in not one but multiple locations, actually all three of you, how do you look at it? What stands out for you?
So, I think first of all, I'm very excited to be here. I think it's a great movement, and I'm saying it more from the people side. Uh, and I would like to say it like this: that if I go back, and when these kind of surveys used to happen, and if I'm part of the organization, you feel this is like a proud moment. You feel like, yeah, you're at the right place. So I really want to thank all who has contributed to this survey, and they believe we are doing the right thing as a management, in Mondelez organization, to make it work for them. So really humble to see the results of this survey. I think, as Shweta mentioned, I just want to echo on one thing. I think last 2 years have been challenging, but I think again this is a true testimony that how the organizations have evolved, how they have kept people at the front, at the center of everything what we do. Because I truly believe, I think people are the biggest assets of any company. So from that perspective, again, I'm very pleased. Um, but yeah, I think as we go into this conversation, we will learn more, and we can unpack, as you rightly said at the beginning, right? So we will unpack what are the areas we are doing good, and what we can do better. So back to you,
Great.
Rohit.
Thanks, Nitin. And as we get into it, I see that we have listeners from Delhi, from Brazil, from other parts of Manhattan. So good to have a very global audience. And one thing I would like to call out is that we have been referring to a study far too many times. So all our listeners today, you can download this study, which analyzes 200 plus GBS organizations across these three key markets. The link is now available in the chat, and you can have a copy of the complimentary report by downloading it. And now moving on to the what everybody is here for today, right? Let's start unpacking in terms of it's great to see you right at top, but what makes you get there? So Shweta, I'll come back to you. While it kind of it feels great, I'm sure, and congratulations again to SAP. But help us understand when you say you have invested a fair bit, you have tried some of the new things. Just share more details that can help everybody today. Is what is it that you do differently? What makes you relatively more attractive organization as an employer?
Yeah, and I would, before I start sharing some of the stuff that we have been doing, Rohit, I think, I would just like to, take my audience, that if you look at organizations today, you pick up, and here we are representing three different industries, right? But if we look at any of the organizations and pick up, the practices and the policies and what we are doing, more or less it would all look very similar, because over a period of time we have learned from each other. We have, in some sense, joined the bandwagon, and every organization today resembles very similar to each other. What really differentiates at the core is the organizational culture. And at SAP, for us, like Tarun was alluding to, I think we again take a lot of pride in being a very purpose and collaboration driven culture. And what it essentially means, if I break it down, it essentially means for us is that our employees connect with our purpose, the larger SAP purpose, in terms of what we are trying to solve for the world, what we are trying to solve for the customers. But at the same time, we also as an organization take that extra step to understand what drives them. And together we come to co-create our culture. So if there are two things I have to really call out, Rohit, and then I'll probably do a little bit of deep dive in each of this, is one very, very as important aspect is staying relevant. I think we set an example in the industry by finding what are the current needs in the current societal context. And I can give an example. During our pandemic, obviously the well-being of our employees and the families was paramount. We had to make sure that they are safe, the support required is at the best level, and we take some proactive steps around that. And the conversations on things like mental health have always been very, very important, and we have always been talking about it. But then we try to make sure that we are not just the leadership coming and talking about it. We had our employees, our managers being a part of that conversation. We did a lot of pulse checks in that. We went to understand what are the concerns. We gave update on the situation, tried to make sure that everybody is aware, that as an organization, well-being and safety is the most important aspect. When you talk about productivity, you talk about deliverables. So that's the empathetic angle that was really, really important at that point in time. We also, there are a lot of things from a policies and practice perspective, but if I have to call out a few things, we were one of the first ones. We said, there are certain, there is a need for a digital detox, and there are people who are stretching for longer hours. So we introduced, in the middle of the pandemic, where people were really finding, the right way to balance between work and the personal lives. We introduced, the new meeting Fridays, or what we call today as Focus Fridays, which was an initiative where, we allow our employees not to be, having those meetings, and not to focus too much on the deliverable for that one day. So you kind of take the time out, go learn something. It could be anything. It need not be even related to the work that you're doing, but go find out time to recharge your batteries. If it means that you go and learn pottery, so be it. Right. If you go and learn anything which recharges, your energies, we kind of allowed them. We also realized that everybody was so much into deliverables and kind of meeting targets, that learning was taking a back seat. People were not used to learn virtually, and there are a lot of efforts that we made to make sure that learning is kind of a bite size. It is something which is easily available. You could actually do it at your home while you're cooking, and you listen to a nice podcast and learn something new. So a lot of that, a lot of professional certification programs we launched, so that the upskilling doesn't stop. So we did around that. And now when I look at, this year, and, hopefully the pandemic is behind us, and everybody is talking about getting back to office, we do realize that, we have 5 generations in the organization with different needs, and everybody's needs are unique. We launched the hybrid work model. We said there's no cookie cutter approach. It is really not possible for us to say this is a model, which are going to work. So every team, decides on what are the days in which they would want to work from office, keeping the business and the customer context. And I think that gave the flexibility that there is a trust based environment, that we are really not bothered about, where our employees are. We make sure that whenever they come to, office, whenever they are in a mode to travel to come to office, they make the most out of, through collaboration, and kind of brainstorming. So we transformed our office spaces. We actually have deskless concept. I'm the only one probably who has a desk, considering my role. But there are a lot of these flexi areas where people just kind of come together and, meet and spend time with each other. So those are little things that we did, from a workplace perspective. But if I have to call out the single most differentiator for which we get a lot of accolades, is that not a single of our policies and practices or whatever we did during the pandemic or otherwise, Rohit, was everything was co-created with employees. So when you make employees a part of your journey, when you connect them to the purpose, they actively collaborate and contribute with every step. So anything that you picked up, whether it was creating an app during the pandemic, so that employees are able to be connected with each other, they have somebody to reach out to, whether it is all the stuff that, that we rolled out, whether it was, we realized there is, element of domestic violence, that was happening around, and we had to make a stance and a policy and support for whoever needed in our organization. We did some of that, in collaboration with our, with our employees. We said it's okay if you come back and say this isn't working for me, or this is the way I would like to contribute. So those are some of the things that I would really call out. One is, just keeping in tune with what is happening around the world and looking at your employee base and, connecting with them. And the second is anything that we do has a role of employees. We have a lot of people in our organization who work on fellowships. Fellowships is a stretch that we do. And you would find that people are in the HR team, people work from HR in the business teams, and everybody kind of comes together to create the best version of anything that gets rolled out for the organization. So those are some of the things that I feel I would like to call out as some of the areas where, we really differentiated.
That's great to hear, Shweta. Thanks for sharing. And what stands out for me is one, it is never a one big thing, but a accumulation of multiple small initiatives that creates that impact and momentum. And second, in the study we did, we even went deeper and we analyzed what areas of feedback are most consistent with companies who are standing out at the top.
Yeah.
And it's not compensation beyond a point. It's not even the work environment, but it is the factor around purpose and sense of belonging, which is the single standout factor. With if I remember correctly, a 0.75 correlation with organizations' ability to emerge as a top employer. So bang on that one, right? Tarun, let me bring this to you. Similar question, but of course I understand there are some things you also adopted to what Shweta said, but there are some things you did differently. And there is a question from audience, Tarun, if I might just give you a two-part question, right? Is that in your experience across managing the India side and the Philippines side, what were the elements which were particularly different, and how do you enable that while kind of keeping it a one, single organization, similar culture and purpose? So both what you do, which that makes you great employer, and also how do you differentiate between your strategy in the two locations?
Okay. I'm going to try to focus on elements that are very representative of how we work. I'd like to make a few statements, I think, which summarizes first. First, I have to say that we work very hard with responsibility and with passion for people every single day. And when I say people, it's both clients, it's employees, and it's general the community. Because if you look at sustainability and the environment, that's a big part of our strategy. So that's point number one. We work really hard for people every single day. I like to focus on the work environment aspects, Rohit, and everyone who's joined us for this conversation, because I think there are a few aspects which are very important to us, and I truly believe they help us create a culture that I'm very proud of. First of all, we are purpose orientated, and our purpose is um, ensuring that our clients, basically ensuring our clients' well-being. So ensuring they have lifetime financial security and they live healthier lives. This purpose, even when I say it now, I guess a little bit of goosebumps, even after so many days of working and years of working in the company, because it just, many of us joined Sun Life because of this purpose statement. And every year we revisit it and we think, should we change something about it? I said, no, no, no. We are all just so passionate about this purpose statement, helping our clients live healthier lives and ensuring their lifetime financial security is so important to us. So we all rally around that, and we really do. And we have stories that we've gone above and beyond. We have honored claims when they have expired to help family members. They reached out to our clients before they filed claims. I mean, there's just many stories. It's a 157-year-old organization. So you can imagine the kind of stories we have had, and many times we've gone above and beyond. If there's been a big accident, we try to find out was there any Sun Life client in it that we should proactively reach out to and help. So it's just, and we share stories almost on a monthly basis, and we award people for going above and beyond their jobs to help our clients, right? So I think it's very inspiring. So it's ongoing. I've been telling my team and working with them, saying we should write a book. We should publish a book on the story as to how we've gone above and beyond on our purpose. So I think that's point number one. I think the other is just a culture. And Shweta mentioned culture. That is such a big piece of our success overall for our strategy. Is also a big piece of success in terms of people feeling connect to the purpose and feeling empowered. So a key element of our culture is bolder. We want this organization to be bolder. And each alphabet stands for something. B stands for being, and this is, I'm sure, is common to a lot, but if we really walk this path, we take learnings and we think we deviate it, so on and so forth. One is we want to have a bias for action. So we want to fail fast and learn fast. We are open to listening. We don't fossilize opinions, continuously listen and incorporate inputs. L is about learning all the time. So we have a whole focus from a organization standpoint, learning standpoint, which is learning all the time and growing all the time. D is delivering outcomes for people who count on us. E is empowerment, and we're driving multiple ways. Happy to talk about multiple ways in which we are making advances on having hopefully the most empowering workforce that we can possibly have. And then R is resilience, super important, and we learned that in the COVID times as well. But in addition to Boulder, which inspires people, which gives them opportunity to innovate, which gives them the opportunity to learn from failure and be okay with it, which helps them create initiatives that takes the company forward. The most important element that touches our hearts is a culture of care, right? The way people rally around causes together, whether it's a community cause, whether somebody's facing a hardship, it's just part of our DNA to come together as a family. And I think that is so special. That is I've worked in some top organizations, and I see some of the top aspects of those organizations' culture being represented here. So I think that is something I must say. And before I conclude on the work environment, all of this, was reflected in the way we did our strategy for Sun Life Asia Centers. It was a 9-month process, and every single one of our employees was involved in formulating a vision and strategy. And not only my team and my organizations here, but even our colleagues wider across Canada, US, Asia, asset management, they're all involved with us through workshops in helping me and the team have a executable Sun Life AC strategy. And I think that was amazing because we took moonshots, people came with blue sky thinking, if you want to call it a blue ocean strategy, call it what you may. Let's assume you have all the budget in the world. Let's assume you're empowered fully. What would you like to do? Everything people have said is documented very well. We are taking elements of that and making initiatives of that. So we have procurement next. By the way, we have finance next. What do you want to do? So we've broken the strategy down by functions as well, apart from organizations. So I think that is a big case study in terms of, I like to call it the most democratically done strategy that I've ever. I always try to do it in every company I've been in, but we've been widely successful here with putting that together. So I think that's something I would call. And the last point I'll mention is, as part of our strategy, we did many values workshops across the organization, both in India and Philippines, and in person. This started last year when COVID was ebbing a little bit, was getting lower a little bit. So we did in-person workshops and 4 hours with each of the functions, 20, 30 people each. And so it's hard work. I started my answer to your question with this hard work, but it's work that we enjoy. It's the amount you put into people and getting them galvanized across a mission vision, and then facing questions. So when I make some mock changes, people come back, and sometimes we have debates for hours. Before we're making the change, speaking, we have debates for hours. And I would like to feel and think that every single employee can easily challenge any one of the leaders anytime, and get an answer and feel okay to challenge us. And so they certainly challenge me. So I think I love the culture of speak up and be able to answer every question. Even the question looks obtuse, you want to certainly respect the question. So the culture of care and respect is the dominant thing in Sun Life as well as in ASC. On the question of India and Philippines, no matter where you are in Sun Life, the purpose is the same. So the purpose binds us, right? And all of us we just have different jobs, and that directly contributes to our clients or indirectly contributes to our clients, or environment, right? Or community. So I think that's point number one. Point number two, are there some differences between India and Philippines? I think the team is so well connected. My leadership team comprises both India and Philippines. We meet bi-weekly. We have many points of connects. Travel, now that it's opened up, we're traveling, every other month, so and so forth. I think that really helps. We have both technology and ops in the Philippines as well as in India. So it's not that we are, so that way we are not only complementary. There are certain aspects where we are complementary, but there are many aspects where we are overlapping as well. But the responsibilities and accountabilities are clear. You could have a functional owner in India, and then you may have a Philippines team reporting to him or her, and vice versa. You may have a functional owner in Philippines, and you may have a team in India reporting to him or her as well. So it's quite integrated, and that's a power. I think that's a power of ASC, is this jointness, this collectedness, and this ability to harness a power of both the locations and both the cultures. I see a lot more similarities in the culture, drive, ambition, capability. So yeah, so I see more commonness than difference there. And the Philippines, the work that is in the Philippine Center started 31 years ago. The work that is in India started 16 years ago. So this is an organization that has grown over a period of time, and in the last decade or 2 decades jointly.
So that's great to hear, Tarun. Let me ask you something different then. When we were studying the data, we also started looking at the overall feedback across different dimensions and across different geographies. And what we noticed is that the employee feedback tends to be more positive in the Philippines, uh, followed by Poland, and not surprisingly, but because we've been talking about this for a long time, but followed by India, and a lot of it is
I think connection.
I think we lost Rohit.
While he comes back, I'll probably assume the question he was asking. What I'd like to share is that in my observation, I worked in Philippines earlier as well. In the last 2 years, so we do a quarterly employee engagement and participation and engagement survey. We've internally as well, Rohit, we have had amazing feedback in terms of engagement survey. They're always in the 90s, by the way, just so that you know. So India and Philippines are quite similar, at least in ASC, in terms of the engagement pulse surveys, which you do quarterly. They are both great places to work with similar percent favorable as well. So what we are seeing, especially in Sun Life, ASC, is I don't see that differentiation.
Got it. Got it. No, thanks. Thanks, Tarun. And Nitin, let me ask you this, one,
Mhm.
Mondelez again, I think in different geographies, so more in the Poland geography, you're kind of standing out along with India. But also, I saw one of the questions in coming in from our listeners is, uh, is there a difference, is there a ease of hiring as a captive versus an outsourced team? And within Mondelez, you have a significant team that you have as part of the Mondelez, organization, but also you work with third-party organizations a fair bit, and
Right.
looking at the integrated business services. So one, what do you do differently at Mondelez that makes you stand out? And second, do you find what are the differences you see when hiring talent in these two models?
Got it. So let me answer this, I would say, in two ways. Um, so first of all, I would say when it comes to our own captive or in-house organizations from the shared services or GBS point of view, uh, versus the hiring that we are doing with our strategic partners, again as a overall spectrum, typically we don't differentiate. Okay, so because what we believe in is that they are the extended team of Mondelez organization, so we typically don't differentiate. Point number one. Point number two is we we participate directly into the HR programs and training programs that our partners are doing, let's say for their organization, and it's more like a kind of a learning from each other, that what they are doing for their broader organization, that we should take in for our organization in terms of better employee practices. Point number two. And then if I talk about third, more on a inside organization, because that is something we do it on daily basis. I would say two things which really work, and I'm more saying this from the employee perspective, again putting myself into their shoes, is number one, we have a very open culture. So what does it mean? What it means is, we again, if someone is put in a particular role, and if he or she wants to do something as knowing his or her capabilities, we are having an environment here where we let those employees do over and above and not really judge them. Okay, so I think that is something which has really worked well for us, because that's where I think in today's world, all the millennials, if I use that term, I think that's where they don't want to get into a box, right? They don't want them to get judged just on their specific roles. They want to do much more than versus their abilities. So that's really one. Second, from the inside organization point of view, is I would say we have very robust training and development programs. So what it means is, again, last 2 years, again I will go into this because I think the way world has changed from ways of working point of view, from technology evolution point of view. Again, in last 2 years, I think the whole focus on training and development for from the employees point of view has gained a different dimension. So that is, again, we are doing a lot of investment, and again not at just, let's say, one level, for all the levels, because everyone, and again I'm saying all this more from the employee perspective, uh, everyone wants to stay relevant, right? Not just for the current job but for their future growth. So, and so it's kind of putting these kind of programs into the hands of the employee. So what we call it really a self-assessment training program, that we have created a self-assessment program. You do your own assessment, where do you stand versus your job requirements, and it will tell you automatically, that yeah, these, you need to do something on data management professional, you need to do something on AI, you need to do something on process domain with Hackett. So it's like kind of do your self assessment and pick the top priority that you want to develop yourself on. So I will stop there, but yeah, I think training development, open culture is really working for us from the inside organization point of view. But then at the overall, I would say, ecosystem, when we work at the partners level, I think there is a lot of handshake that we do to make sure it works end to end for the broader organization.
Nitin, Rohit, if you allow me, I can ask a quick follow-up question, Nitin, because this is an area of my interest, and I'm assuming it'll be an area of many people's interest. I always believed, for various reasons, that a culture that is and a development that is employee-led
Yeah.
and manager-assisted is one that is more empowering than the other way around. Meaning,
Yeah.
a manager decides, right? I think it should be mainly employee deciding, and manager helping as a coach, and also being open. If somebody, to your point, Nathan, wants to move from one job to the other,
Right.
right? Because you want people to be working a job that is their calling. Do you see that happening more and more, where employees are taking the lead in defining their own career path, defining their own trainings? Because a lot is available today. Their own
Absolutely.
mentors, for example.
No, it's and thanks for asking that question, because actually, Tarun, this is what we are seeing in the recent past from last 1 year, that I've seen people who have changed, and this is one extreme that I'm talking about, where people have changed their job profiles completely from being a operations process guy to a IT person who is doing now robotics and kind of AI programs. So absolutely, I think this is how and now I'm getting some goosebumps, because I will tell you one example here just to make it real life. I've seen a person, I'll not take the name here, but that, and he that person is really doing very well, that who actually moved from this area to that area. And it actually tells me, why I'm getting a goosebump is because if I go 20 years back in my career, I think when we all started, right, our career, that was the time that we were actually doing the self assessment ourselves, but we never knew, because of the lack of information, what should we really do. And I think now is the age. I think it has opened up so much. And if as an employer you can give all this information back to the employee, that yeah, these are the options, these are the opportunities, this is how you can develop yourself, this is how the whole ecosystem in our organization looks like, employees will be like, they feel, yes, I am really empowered, to your point, that I should go for this. So thanks for asking that question. I
And
see more.
those are kind of managers I think we need today, that who are open, because today managership, if I can call it, and leadership is not about who reports to you. It's about who wants to work with you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. That's exactly the point. I think, yeah.
Rohit, you're on mute.
Yeah, I realized has to happen to one person, right?
Yes.
Catch that out. But yeah, that's a very valuable question. Thanks for asking that, Tarun. But collectively, as I hear each of you, I think the culture and purpose are the common themes. There is a lot of focus on learning across what Shweta you highlighted, what Nitin highlighted. I'm sure there are examples at Sun Life. And then the other theme is also the kind of improving that sense of belonging by co-creation, bringing people together, whether it is by way of the policies, or the way policies are built for them, by the way of which the strategy is built. So a lot of those things are really standing out. Thanks for sharing. Let me switch gears here and talk about some of the challenges, because it looks great on the outside. You are the top employers, congratulations, you can kind of savor the movement. But I'm sure that there is a lot of grind, hard work, and kind of painful, days which are kind of in the background, and not just for you, for your extended teams. And it takes a lot of real effort to be where you are and then sustain that kind of proposition for your employees. So, Shweta, once again, starting with you, what are the top challenges? What do you continue to struggle with? And any best practices you want to share, particularly in those areas?
Yeah, and if I look at challenges, obviously this is also an opportunity in front of us, right? And But nevertheless, I think if I have to really look at some of the things that gives me personally a sleepless night, I'm sure for the leadership as well. One, I think we spoke a bunch about the learning bit of it. The entire focus on upskilling and reskilling is really, really very, very important. And I was in that regard, I was just talking to one of the friends who's a very senior leader in a peer technology organization, and he was sharing about how he himself, and just imagine this is somebody who is 20 years in the organization, at a fairly senior leadership role, cross LOBs, cross geos. And he was talking about his own personal struggle in terms of how can he upskill himself, because at least in the technology space that SAP is in and other tech organizations are, there is that it's changing very, very fast. So the learning mindset that you always have to keep in, saying that, okay, I need to brush up my skills, I need to constantly challenge and assess myself, I need to certify myself, is easier said than done. And there is still, you would probably have the youngsters who join from campuses in that mindset, but slowly the ability to learn and retain and apply becomes challenge. And that is something that is one of the challenges that I feel. The other thing is, earlier, and Nitin was talking about 20 years back, and Tarun was also alluding on how managers used to be looking. Earlier there used to be this entire theory around that you have to be an expert in one area, right? And that is something which will take you far in the organization. Today we do realize that this entire phrase of jack of all trades, master of none, is just the upside down, right? We really need jack of all trades. We need people who are a great AI developer, but at the same time has a keen sense of the business and how it would be run, or somebody who can really do transformation in the organization. But today, if you put the person into a deep technical topic, is still able to kind of talk about it and steer the organization through that. So those are some of the challenges that we see. One is talent upskilling, reskilling. The other piece of it is how do you create a multi expert kind of a workforce, which where the focus is on in learning different things and becoming a much more holistic professional. I think that is one. And the third one, I think everybody will resonate with me, is about retaining talent. And this is not like, I'm sure, only with SAP. This has been an industry, problem. What the world has seen in the last couple of years has been absolutely unprecedented, right? Especially in an industry like ours. The digital transformation that was so much, brought in with such a force. The organizations were kind of struggling, and to get the right kind of talent, there were employees who reacted to some of the opportunities, took abrupt steps, people found better opportunities. And then employers also, especially with those who managed to have deep pockets, kind of had a lot of through money. And this was just a kind of a challenge that I'm sure everybody faced in the last couple of years. So I think instead of really having different retention measures and reacting to something which is not sustainable, I think there is a need for organizations to reflect on what is the value proposition. So I'm really proud that this study is still through, that in spite of these challenges, SAP is still looked upon as one of the top GBS, is a great advantage for us, right? But have we really figured out the whole retention piece of it? I really don't know. We have moved from the great resignation period to now what we are hearing as great regret, when actually it should be a great reflection, right? Where everybody, right from employees to employers, really need to reflect, where we are heading as organizations. So yeah, so those are some of the continuous challenges, and this is not getting any better. Whether it is the talent skilling piece of it, whether it is what we struggle in terms of retention, these are some of the things which are continue to be. And that is where what I spoke, Rohit, earlier about the strength of a culture, the connection to the purpose. When a person comes in and he looks at 10 organizations who look very similar, what does he see in you as a differentiator for to trust, to build a career, is something which is really really important.
That's a great point, Shweta. And a couple of things. One, I think I'm kind of very interesting that 50 minutes into the conversation, this is the point at which compensation is kind of coming up when you make the point around deep pockets as attention, attraction and attention lever. And that is so
Yeah.
interesting because everybody keeps on kind of paying a premium to others' employee, but where does it stop? Because everybody is breaking their bands. And
Correct.
whatever the strong face they may put, cost pressures are real. And to be
Yeah.
honest, there's a gap between the justified, compensation bands and just hiring. And that's where I
Yeah.
think that investment in learning becomes important because the only way the community can benefit is by kind of creating more project ready resources. So individual organizations, but also collectively, what can happen in
Yeah.
one thing I want to share for our listeners today is that if you were not one of the 200 organizations covered in this assessment, or probably you were, but reach out to us and you can request for benchmarking against your direct peers in the location of your choice in any of these markets that you are covering. If you're already covered, we'll present you with your assessment. Otherwise, we'll do that complimentary benchmark for you. So you will find that link where you can make this request, and we'll be happy to read out your specific results to you. Uh, Tarun, coming over to you, in terms of challenges. So apart from the challenges that Shweta highlighted around mainly skilling and then of course retention, uh, I'm sure there's a bit of a commonality, but are these top two for you as well, or what is different?
Uh, excuse me. Yeah, I like to talk about challenge and opportunity, but before I go there, I like to share something that's coming to my mind just because of what Shweta shared. I don't know if many people have heard, he's relatively unknown. His name is Ernest Shackleton, and he was among many things he did, he was an Antarctic explorer, I think the 18th century or so. And for people who have studied him, they say he's one of the best leaders to have ever walked on Earth because people trusted him and he bet his life over his people and so on and so forth. But he had a job ad, okay, when he was going to places that were had not been navigated to before, and he would say need kind of people you need on a ship, right? So you say we need foremen, we need navigators, we need cooks, and so on and so forth. And the ad read, long periods of darkness is what you will experience. Most of the time you'll be hungry and thirsty, right? Most of the times you'll be sick. Um, your death is nearly guaranteed if you take this job. However, if you survive, honor and glory guaranteed, right? And people applied for the job ad. So I always keep that in mind when we think about compensation and so on and so forth. So the while we may not be exactly there, I think the idea is to hire people for whom the culture in a company works and who will be culture carriers, to whom the purpose matters, to whom there are many, for whom there are many avenues to be their most authentic selves and the whole selves at work. So whether it's interest groups, whether it's not only doing a job but also working on some community initiatives and so on and so forth, who people will thrive in that culture. Then they will stay for long. And I've seen many of that, in my organization. Um, so I think we do face those challenges, but that should really immediately we should think about what do we do as a found, and I call it advancing our foundations. What do we do in our foundations that we strengthen further to solve this problem over a long term? Short term, absolutely. We all see those challenges, and we probably have to be practical. Some of those challenges will continue, but if we can lower the percentage points of attrition through foundational elements, getting better, culture getting stronger, so on and so forth, I think it'll be good. But the top opportunity and a challenge for me is ensuring that the workforce is architecting a future. They're taking on the leadership. So we get, there's a lot of time our jobs compel us to focus on what I call run, but we have to absolutely focus on grow and transform, innovation, new stuff as well. We've got to do both very well, right? So really architecting a future together. How do we become digital leaders? How do we create experiences for our clients enabled by digital? How do we become innovation hub? Are we advancing? Do we have monthly metrics that are tracking? That's what we are doing within the company, right? Do we have monthly strategy metrics that make it simple? Here are 10, 12 things that tell us we're going the right direction. So I think that is a challenge, having a workforce that is driven to create the future for the company as well. I'm not a big fan of only order taking workforce. Yes, we absolutely should, once you take a decision, we should all march in the same direction. You may call it order taking, but it's really marching in the same direction. But I want decision makers and inputters at every point in the organization who are constantly thinking about the future, and that should be collective. So I think that's the challenge. Then execution is constantly a challenge, making sure that we execute on what we envision. We have a tagline within the company. How do we go from insight to outcome? Insight in the morning, outcome in the afternoon. Can we be that agile? Can we that, there's one element of the future, right? It's more speed as well. So anyway, so I think those are things. Can we create the future and not only be a consumer of future?
Tarun, do you remind me of our previous tagline? It used to be from insights to action. So we were just one step behind that outcome, and we realized we need to do better. So now we say with you on the journey. So we are right from the morning to the dinner. We are with our clients. But jokes apart, I think the important point you make there is the foundations need to be strong, and also there needs to be measurement. When you say metrics, there needs to be measurement, and measurement not only on SLAs and the work delivered, but also on some of these other goals. For example, a lot of things around culture, trust, belonging, learning. But what are the metrics on these, and is the leadership accountable for these metrics as well? And yes, we have heard a lot of this. The role of the GBS organizations has evolved. It is evolving fast, stepping up. These are not mere delivery organizations anymore. They are playing a fundamental role in transformation, change, and growth of the enterprise. And as that happens, building the leadership at scale that can deliver is important. So thanks for calling that out. I think that's very critical. Uh, Nitin, when you reflect back from a Mondelez perspective or your broader experience in the industry, are there any different challenges that you see, or something, if you have to pick one, what is the most difficult thing to tackle in kind of your work at Mondelez?
Yeah, and see, Rohit, I think most of the challenges have been covered. But let me put it this way. I think my reflection at this point of time would be something like this. You know, there has been pandemic. It has been a period of almost 18 months to 24 months. So, the curve has basically come down, right? And when these kind of, ups and downs happen, we have to go back to basics. And again, I'll use those two words, I think, which has been used again and again on this conversation, is purpose and sense of belongingness. So I think it's again a time for all the organizations. How are we revisiting that purpose and creating that sense of belongingness for the employees to overcome these challenges? Because I think that's again, I'm just putting myself into the shoes of employees, because this is how I would see it, coming from that to here, and then what's next, right? So I think that's how I will just sum it up from my angle, that looking at these challenges, if we can revisit that purpose and we can create that sense of belongingness with the employees, we should be good.
I would add one more thing. Nitin is inspiring me to add this. So it's 30 seconds or less. I think the resilience is often overlooked, right? So many times in my own career, and even on a daily basis, two things I like to mention. Number one, I do share with my team, just to set the expectations, that when you come with something big and bold, assumed out of the 10 people you speak, 9 will reject your offer. Actually, to my leaders, I say 99 times. So the 100th time you'll probably win, because those 99 times you'll learn something, you'll fine tune your strategy. To others, I say at least 9. So, maybe we'll get dejected. Oh my, I didn't go through. And the point I make is, at least I fail on a daily basis. Most of the times I'm failing actually, and I'm learning. And then so one day you succeed on something. Second, also as a leader, you will be solving problems on a very daily basis. I mean, actually, things don't come to me unless they're a problem. I'm sure that's the same case with Shweta and Nitin. In general, things come to us when it's very few times I get to attend such meetings, Rohit. The most of 90% of the time is basically some problem or the other that either you're defining the future or there's some problem to be solved. And I think loving that journey and finding joy in solving those problems and even making those problem solving fun. I think fun at work is so overlooked in all of this, and it's so important to have fun and enjoyment at work. Whether you have solve problem over cheesecakes, you get pumpkin spice lattes, you organize 3 hour dancing in the Leela in Gurugram, which you did, by the way. Right? Some ways, whatever works for your culture and whatever works for you as a person, where you hold arts and craft exhibition and you paint the future together. I think just having joyful atmosphere of problem solving and creativity. So your mind is not ruled by fear, but ruled by possibilities, even though you have problems. I think it's very important.
Yeah. And Rohit, again, I'm also getting inspired. If I have to just add one more very, very fundamental thing that organizations need to keep in mind, I think the challenge is, like I said, there's not never going to be a perfect period, right? There is so much change happening. There is so much happening with the workforce today. Um, the fun is important, but one of the most important aspects is how much are you listening to your employees, right? I think there is a lot that we as organizations need to do. We need to listen more, and there is absolutely no other silver bullet to address employee communication gap, because you have different generations working in your organizations. They would have, so the fact that they would want to have fun at work, or they would want to learn, or they would want to reskill, regular feedback to understand the employee perspectives, and design ways in which just a survey is not the only place where they could come and just put their feedback, and or an all hands where they go anonymous and put a comment. It has to be something where they trust to come and tell you this is not working, or this is something that I need to change in our organization, and you can listen to that and work on that. I think that is again one of the things which will be very, very important according to
I
me.
think the metric on that listening, Shweta, you're inspiring me to say this. The metric on that is that if you're not getting tired of listening to people around you on a daily basis, you're not listening enough.
Yeah.
You should be getting so tired, okay, I need a little bit of a break before I listen to the next person, clear my mind. It really should be like that as a leader. You should be getting, maybe not if you're superhuman, but you should be getting tired because you're listening for hours and hours.
So
Absolutely.
that's a very important point, Shweta, Tarun, and also this came up in one of the roundtables we were hosting recently in Bangalore, right? Similar leaders as yourself, representing their GBS organizations, that, and then it impacts, by the way, directly the perception of your brand out there, because if your employees feel they have the platform where they are actually able to share, and somebody is listening and reacting, the tendency to go out there and share the same feedback, the feedback will get addressed, b, the tendency will be
Yes.
lower. There will always be some noise, but if people can share in the house, they will talk less about it outside those four
Absolutely.
walls.
I will tell you
So
this, and even inside Rohit, I would tell you our engagement scores have been skyrocketing for the last 8 or 9 quarters. Okay, and I've been here 2 years. I've seen that skyrocket, and it's increasing, like 95 to 97. Now it's almost 99. I don't know how we'll go to 100. But when on a daily basis, it doesn't feel like that to me.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, it feels there's a lot of things you got to solve. Somebody may not be. I don't know that I can link happiness or joy to the problem, but people are facing problems because, at least to me, on a daily basis, it's problems I'm solving. So if you ask me, would you get a 90% score in engagement next time? I'd say probably I get 50 or 60. But it's 90 because, to Shweta's point, we are solving those problems and people are seeing the sincerity of effort. And the last point I'll make is, and this is very close to my heart, is like a 3-second point. I absolutely try to be, and I absolutely measure selflessness in a leader. Thinking about the company first,
Yeah.
and yourself absolutely last as a leader. I think I cannot dissociate selflessness and giving, from leadership. I think leadership has to be about giving and service. Absolutely has to be giving and service. And listening is a way to serve and give.
yep. And Tarun, you'll very soon need to reset the baseline, I think, to make some runway for your engagement scores. But what reminds me is also, Tarun, we looked at not just the internal scores, but also when GBS organizations take feedback from their clients, who are more than often uh, representatives from different businesses, different geographies as part of the enterprise. And in those feedback scores as well, something you said, Tarun, we saw a significant jump upwards in the scores during COVID, immediately after COVID. And when we investigated on the key reason, resiliency in the GBS organization stood out. And I think when that happens, your customers are happy, and organizations which are more resilient also saw a relatively happier workforce. Without naming names, we read a lot of news about large BPO IT providers out there. Some of them are offering great benefits and hiring tens and thousands of employees every quarter, but they are leaking talent at a very high rate. And the main reason is employees don't feel that this organization is very resilient, very stable, or they care for their employees on a consistent basis. It's kind of a wavering focus. So thanks to all again for making those great points.
Rohit, I'll say this, if you can let me be idealistic for 3 seconds. You know what my dream is? You survey, let's say, 1,000 companies out there, and all of them score 100 on 100 on each of your, whatever metrics you have. So there is no second. The whole corporate world has moved up.
Oh, that would be a dream scenario, and yeah, I mean that I think the baseline keeps shifting. So let me come to you, Shweta. As you're sharing a lot for your peers, but also you've been a people manager for a very long time. Looking at workforce HR strategy, what advice would you give to some of the tech techies who are listening in today, or broadly, many who are professionals who are part of the GBS organization? What advice would you give to the workforce? And this is a multi-generational workforce, so any words of wisdom?
Yeah, so I think some of it I already covered, Rohit. So when I was saying about, the learning agility piece of it, it's that is very, very important. If you're especially joining, a tech industry, there is learning never stops, right? So, as per the new customer requirements, technologies that are coming in, very, very important to keep that, learning drive in you, what I called as learning ability, that should not go down. So, and I always believe that in order to keep, the learning agility, it is really not necessary that you just go and learn for your area of work, right? Sometimes you have to just kind of go and be and shadow somebody, and you have to sit with somebody who's doing an absolutely different kind of a work and get some insights, because those are the moments, which kind of propel you to think out of the box and get you out of the comfort zone. I would also say, it's collaboration is very, very important. So people who are wanting to join, especially in the tech organization, we really don't take pride in individual heroics, right? You work together with people and you make products happen. So one has to find opportunities to collaborate and build a very strong network, connection, right? To create list of people, stakeholders that you would want to connect with, build relationships within and outside your organization. That's very, very important as well. Today, we take a lot of pride when our employees come back and tell us, here is an organization that I spoke to, did this great. And, the first thing I tell them is that great, there is a learning for us. Today in this conversation, I learned so much from Tarun and Nitin. These are things that makes you reflect. So collaboration is again one of the ask. Feedback, right? Very, very important. And I think Tarun spoke a bunch about it, in terms of listening and being a selfless leader. I think if you are joining the workforce currently in a senior management position or in a leadership position, you need to, get feedback. And many times, the feedback is only the good things, and you have to then scratch the surface and listen to things which you want to. The engagement scores will only tell you one part of the story, but if you sit with a coffee in your hand, with a bunch of your team members, you'll listen to stories which will make you reflect. So that's again the third piece that I would say. And then I think I can't emphasize of this fact that leadership starts very young. Today, we in SAP realized it pretty soon, and today we have people just 2 years out of the college where we actually put them as a part of a leadership curriculum where they learn to lead products and services. But one of the things that comes along with it is that one has to become a community builder, right? Ability to take people together, ability to get people excited. That is, just being very strong in one area is really not sufficient today. Building the community together, having people work together. Like, I think Tarun and Nitin were saying that who wants to work with you is very, very important. And that doesn't stand just for the leaders, it stands for everybody. People have choices, and people, if they don't see you as somebody who's as invested in you as they are, they would not want to work with you. So I think that part of leadership skills is very, very important as well. So those are some of the advice that I would, Rohit, would want to humbly share with anybody who's wanting to join the workforce, that have desire to work in an industry like SAP, for sure.
Thanks a lot, Shweta. That's very helpful. And I think the feedback works kind of 360-degree, as you
Yeah.
highlighted, that's most important. So even the leaders learn from a very fresh talent. And then this is a multi-generational workforce. So unless everybody learns, doesn't evolve. Uh, Tarun, my last question to you, any advice you would want to give with your peers? Again, you have shared a lot of very specific areas, but as we still look at a few more years of struggle in this very competitive talent market before hopefully some of the fundamentals start shaping up and falling in the right place. Uh, any final advice for your peers before we wrap up the discussion today?
I think the advice that you asked a question advice, I'll just share what I'm following and I'm trying to follow. I think just superior leadership. I loved what Shweta mentioned in terms of contribution and building a sense of community and achieving a purpose together. I get passionate about all of us coming together and making a difference in the world, and being bolder. I would say, when I say bolder, continue. I won't go with every alphabet, but certainly a bias for action, learn through action and fail fast. Learn relentlessly. Feedback is learning as well. D is deliver outcomes, serve, contribute, and be resilient so that you continue in your path in a nice way. I think self-awareness is something to do, has a lot to do with everything. So it's a keystone. You're going to call it a habit or a keystone um, capability to have. And lastly, I would say spread joy. I mean, if you're serving, you're contributing, spread joy. Be happy about your journey, and enjoy the journey ahead, because there'll be so many learnings. Tarun, Shweta, Nitin, Rohit, even if we tried our best, cannot list all the learnings, and learnings are also contextual. Everybody's on a different path in a certain way. So, but yeah, this, I would say, be bolder, be self-aware, spread joy.
Thank you. And once again, congratulations to all of you. And thanks for making the time. I understand we are already beyond the time, but Shweta, Tarun, Nitin, thanks a lot to each of you and your teams for sharing these valuable insights. And just before we wrap up, I would like to remind all our listeners today that you can download the complimentary copy of this report. There is a link in the chat which will be available, and you can also access, a complimentary offer to get your organization benchmarked against your peer GBS. And hopefully, this was a good use of 75 minutes of your time. And once again, thanks to my fellow panelists, and good evening to all of you.
Thank you, everyone. Take
Thank
care.
you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye.